Well, this week we are getting another adaptation of Daredevil coming on Disney Plus called Daredevil Born Again, which is riffing off of Frank Miller's iconic story of the same name. I am very much looking for it because, as you guys know, or may not know, I'm not sure, but I am a humongous Daredevil fan. So, I decided I'm going to celebrate the occasion by recommending you all some Daredevil stories that you might want to read before you get into the new show. And I thought it would be a good idea because, I know Daredevil is kind of a cult character. He's one of my favorite characters of all time, but anyway, let me get to the video before I start explaining myself. Hello everyone, Britton here, also known as Some Okie Dude, and I'm back with another video, and as you guys already could tell from my shirt and also from what I'm doing, I'm going to be doing a video recommending some Daredevil stories before the show comes out. Well, actually, the show is coming out tonight as of my recording of this video. So I wanted to recommend you guys some things before you watched it because I think it would be a good idea. And Daredevil is one of my favorite comic book characters, and I wanted to give him his due on here. And this whole week, I am going to be doing nothing but Daredevil content. So I'm going to be doing these recommendations today, and then on Friday, I will be putting out a video about a particular Daredevil story, which I'm going to be very vague on what it's going to be, but you'll probably get the idea of what it is soon when we get into this. But yes, I'm going to be recommending some Daredevil stories, and hopefully it will get into the gist of why I like the character. But yes, Daredevil is one of my favorite comic book characters, as I've noted, and he is also a really just compelling character in general. He also has the rare gift of being one of the few Marvel characters and few characters in mainstream superhero comics who is consistently well written as the series has gone on. As his series has gone on. Sorry, I can't really keep a collection of my thoughts today. But I really like Daredevil a lot for reasons that you could probably assume, given that, I'm not blind or anything, but I do have a certain sympathy for underdog characters. But I think if I could describe why I like Daredevil so much, I think Frank Miller puts it better than anything I could ever say.
Well, how many superheroes are known for what they can't do? I mean, Superman can fly and lift up buildings and all of that. Batman's ridiculously smart and he's got all the technology in the world, and Spider-Man can spin webs and swing across buildings. Daredevil, he's blind. He can't see. That's his distinguishing feature. I fell in love. This guy was perfect.
Okay. I know you guys are probably thinking, Britton, why don't you just tell us why you like Daredevil? Well, okay, aside from what Frank just said, I really like Daredevil because I'm fond of underdog characters. I really like characters who get kicked down, but they keep going anyway. Daredevil is kind of like the superhero version of Charlie Brown. No matter what he does, no matter what you throw at him, you can take away everything he loves. You can destroy his life. You can tear down everything he holds dear, and he'll come back 10 times stronger. And I think there's something very inspirational about that. And also, I'm just a big crime noir nut, and also Daredevil's probably the only big place aside from Batman where you're going to get that from. And also, I really like the fact that despite being a vigilante, he is also a lawyer, and the line that he goes from law to against the law is a really fascinating thing, and one that a lot of writers have taken advantage of, including some of the ones I'll be mentioning on this list today. But these are some recommended Daredevil stories that I want to get into before, that I would recommend before getting into the new show, and hopefully will steer people in the right direction in getting people invested in the character and hopefully getting people excited about the show. So, yeah, let's get into it before I ramble on for too much longer, shall we? Let's go. Hoping to do these as quick as possible, but you never know. So the first story I have here is from the criminally underappreciated Ed Brubaker Daredevil run, and that is The Devil in Cell Block D, which I have in this nice Ultimate Collection cover here, which is probably the best way you can get it now if you want to get it off of Amazon or something. But The Devil in Cell Block D is Ed Brubaker's first big arc with the character after the monumental Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev run, which I will also be talking about in this video. But to get to the gist of it, it's about Matt being in jail. Long story on how that happened, guys. But Matt is in jail, and unfortunately, due to some corruption in the penal system and in the FBI, he ends up getting put into general population at Rikers with his entire rogues gallery, including the Kingpin, including Hammerhead, including basically everyone he's put away, including Kingpin, and of course Bullseye, who ends up showing up a little later on in this arc. Things seem to be getting worse and worse for Matt when something happens to somebody that he deeply cares about and cannot afford to lose, because Matt has lost everything after the events of Bendis' run, which, minor spoilers, he was outed to the press as Daredevil. He denied the crap out of it. Of course, there ended up being some evidence that he was Daredevil, and he got put in jail. So, yeah, long story short, that's what happened. And Brubaker's run really deals with the fallout from that, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, because I do think this run is very good, but I do think that you should read the Bendis run before you get to the Brubaker run. But I do think the Brubaker run is a very, very good run. Very underrated, actually, in comparison to people like Bendis, Wade, or even Frank Miller, for that matter. But this Devil in Cell Block D is a very well-paced, very well done. Michael Lark does the art very well, and though he is not Sean Phillips, I mean, can you imagine Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, Daredevil joint? Would be fantastic. But Michael Lark does add some really great artwork. I really like the shadows of the character. There you go, right there. I mean, it's not Alex Maleev or even Sean Phillips for that matter, but it is very competently done. And oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, how could I forget this? But there's another guy running around in a Daredevil costume who is clearly not Matt Murdock, and I won't dare spoil who it is. And just when you think things aren't going to get any worse for our boy, the Punisher shows up. Give this the Devil in Cell Block D a try. It really is a very strong start, and shows that after the monumental events of the Bendis run, that we were in good hands after that. Speaking of the Bendis Daredevil run, Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev are probably my favorite creative team who has ever been on Daredevil, who isn't Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. And the arc that I'm going to talk about from the first run is kind of one of their most iconic, and also my personal favorite arc from their particular run, and that is Out. This is an arc I would love to see adapted on the new Daredevil Born Again show, because it just feels like a natural evolution of what happened after Season 3. Though, from what I've heard, they are going to kind of go into the Charles Soule run direction, which I'll admit I haven't read all of it. I have only read the first volume to that, which I liked. But Out is one I would love to see be done in the Daredevil Born Again series, because after what happened in Season 3, I feel like it would be very, very natural to see Daredevil not only have his greatest enemy know who he is, but also have the whole world know who he is, and him having to navigate through that. Now, Out is special because Brian Michael Bendis took the story that Frank Miller told in Born Again and extended it to its natural conclusion, which is, of course, one of his underlings ends up figuring out who Matt Murdock truly is, and of course, outs him to the press. And what we get from that is a thorough exploration of all the consequences that come from that. Villains start gunning for Matt. He also starts getting harassed at his workplace. He also has to fight off lawsuits. And also he ends up trying to get a lawsuit against the people who accuse him of being Daredevil, because, of course, he does think about outing himself, but decides against it, of course, against his better judgment. But Out is a phenomenal arc where the noose keeps tightening on our boy Matt Murdock. And of course, Alex Maleev's art, I would be very remiss not to mention how fantastic his art is. Really captures that grimy, gritty side of the Marvel universe. And of course, with Bendis's writing, I know people have some problems with Bendis's writing. I have done a full review of this run, so I won't go too much into it. But Bendis is a very gifted writer. I do think sometimes he is a little too wordy, but here frickin' works because he already specialized in noir comics, so he decided to just do a noir comic that just happened to have Daredevil in it. And of course, like I said, I really like this run because it extends the Frank Miller's Born Again to its most logical conclusion, which is, of course, if your greatest enemy is going to know who you are as a secret identity, why shouldn't the whole world? And of course, Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev are a fantastic team together. They really complement each other's sensibilities. The fact that Maleev manages to use a guy as wordy as Bendis and make you understand what's going on really shows the talent of this guy as an artist. And of course, Out is a fantastic tightening of the noose as Bendis and Maleev methodically build tension throughout the run. Things just get worse and worse. Out is a phenomenal piece of sequential storytelling and easily one of the best Daredevil stories ever told. So, next one is one I sadly do not own because I'm really terrible at owning things. Let me tell you right now. I get as many books as I possibly can, but then I don't get any more. But the next arc I'm going to recommend is No Fear by Chip Zdarsky, who I'll admit I was a bit skeptical when I first heard that Chip Zdarsky was going to take over Daredevil. I'm like, really? The goofy guy who did Howard the Duck, that goofy Canadian guy who did Sex Criminals, he's going to do Daredevil? I'll keep an open mind, but I'm not really looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be a repeat of the Wade years, just a bunch of dumbass jokes and corny one-liners and the fucking pimp suit. I really don't want to get into the fucking pimp suit. No pimp suit. No pimp suit. But my fears were assuaged once I ended up actually reading the first part of his run, No Fear, which was really surprising to me because I really liked the tone that Chip Zdarsky took. Yes, he does have some humor in there. I mean, he's generally pretty good at that. But he understands the feel of Daredevil. He understands the character very well. And, of course, he ends up getting into a lot of trouble, as he tends to do. Matt is recovering from some injuries, and he ends up really going off the rails this time, and he finally ends up considering in this story arc if he should be Daredevil anymore. Everything has been thrown at Matt. He has been outed. He has been exposed to the world. His life has been destroyed many times over. He got possessed by a freaking demon. I mean, the less said about Shadowland, the better, but that did happen to him. It's not a very good story arc, but it did happen. But he's never quit. That's one of Matt's big superpowers, aside from his radar sense, is his inability to give up. But this time, after a very zealous cop starts going after him, and after seeing all the harm he's unintentionally caused as Daredevil, he begins to wonder if it's really even all worth it. Because at the end of the day, I won't really go into really what happens, but I do think that No Fear is a very strong first arc from Chip Zdarsky, and of course Marco Cicchetto's art is phenomenal. I have not read the rest of his run, but I do know that he sticks with them, and my god, Marco Cicchetto is a phenomenal Daredevil artist. He should be up there with the greats such as Alex Maleev, David Mazzucchelli, and of course David Aja comes to mind as well, but, I'm getting ahead of myself. But No Fear is a very, very strong Daredevil arc, and also a really good one if you want a fresh palette. I mean, aside from Bendis run, which kind of starts everything on a new scale, No Fear is a really good one for newer readers if you don't want to get through all the continuity stuff. No Fear is a really good starting on point for anyone who is curious about Daredevil. But No Fear is a fantastic arc of the Daredevil saga and a very strong start to Chip Zdarsky's run, which I do hope to get to the rest of because Chip Zdarsky showed a lot of promise in that arc, and from what I'm told by a lot of my friends, it only just gets better from there. So Yeah, let's move on before I get on too rambly about No Fear from our boy, Chip Zdarsky. And also, Chip Zdarsky, I'm really sorry. I will send you hugs in the mail. Like, I will never doubt you again, sir. So the next one is kind of an iconic one that a lot of people have talked about, and actually is the namesake of the show that we are about to get. You know it. You love it. Daredevil Born Again by Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli. This is the Marvel Premiere Edition that they recently put out, and I finally decided to nab it because I really like this story. It's a great Daredevil story. But I do want to mention that I will actually be doing a review of Daredevil Born Again on Friday, so I won't be talking too much about Born Again, aside from general thoughts. I mean, what can I say about Daredevil Born Again that has not been said? It's Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli together at the height of their creative powers. The same team who did one of my personal favorite Batman stories and my favorite thing that Frank Miller has ever done, Batman Year One. They got together before Batman Year One to do Daredevil Born Again. Confession time, I have not read the actual Frank Miller run. I have read everything around it. I have read The Man Without Fear, which is also a very good comic you should check out, very underrated. And, of course, I have read Born Again, which is kind of a coda to his original run on The Man Without Fear. But despite the fact I think Frank Miller gets way too much credit for revitalizing the character of Batman, I do think his editor on Daredevil, ironically enough, Denny O'Neil, and his mentor Neil Adams deserve just as much of the credit. I do give Frank Miller all the credit in the world for turning Daredevil into a Spider-Man, a blind kind of gimmicky Spider-Man ripoff into basically Marvel's Batman. And he really turned everything around and changed everything. Really shows what you have when you get the right writer at the right time. But Daredevil Born Again really shows Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli at their height of their creative powers. But I do have some issues with it. I do prefer Year One overall. Main reason, climax is overblown as all hell. We end up getting a character called Nuke who ends up showing up. Then the Avengers show up. We even get Captain America showing up in the thing. Though, even despite those setbacks, there are still some really great lines, such as giving Captain America one of his greatest lines in a couple of pages. So, good work, Frank Miller. And, of course, David Mazzucchelli, one of my favorite artists of all time, freaking murders it on the Daredevil Born Again. I mean, some of the greatest paneling they have ever done. I mean, look at that. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Really expressive. I really love that kind of old school cartoon-like style. And the action scenes are just phenomenal. I mean, look at that. David Mazzucchelli freaking murdered it on the on Born Again, and I might even dare say it might be even better than his art in Year One. And I love Year One. I think Year One is the better story than Born Again. But Born Again is a powerful story of degradation, forgiveness, and of course, eventually, rebirth, hence the title. But yeah, I won't say too much because I will be doing a review of Born Again soon on the channel, but this is required reading if you are curious about the character of Daredevil. It is also just a fantastic story about a man being driven to the brink of sanity and then coming back 10 times stronger than he did before, which again, I would say is Matt's biggest superpower, aside from his radar sense and of course his martial arts skills. Daredevil, Born Again, read it. And, I mean, you don't have to get this version, but I do like this version quite a bit. It has a lot of, behind-the-scenes stuff, and even an introduction from Charlie Cox, and another introduction by Frank Miller himself. So, yeah, moving on. So, next one is one that I think is pretty underrated among comic book fans, and that is Daredevil Yellow, by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, the creative team behind such classics such as Batman: The Long Halloween, one of my favorite Batman stories of all time, and quite possibly my favorite Spider-Man story of all time, Spider-Man Blue. Now, if you kind of are wondering, hey, wait a minute, you said Spider-Man Blue and Daredevil Yellow. Well, yes, this was a part of a series of collaborations they were doing based on colors. So they've done a couple ones like Spider-Man Blue, Hulk Gray, Captain America White, which I've heard isn't very good, and of course Daredevil Yellow, which actually manages to combine the sillier, kind of humbler origins of Daredevil with the more darker, gritty Frank Miller inspired eras of Daredevil, and manages to bring them together in a way that I felt was much better and much more cohesive than what Mark Waid tried to do with the character. One of my hotter takes is I was not a big fan of Mark Waid's run on Daredevil. I mean, I appreciate what he was trying to do, but after reading Daredevil Yellow and seeing a much more heartfelt, deeply felt story, I just felt like it wasn't enough for me. It just felt kind of corny in comparison. But I find that Jeff Loeb tends to excel at these kind of mini-series where he can kind of just write from the heart, do his thing, and really enjoy himself as a creator. And of course, Tim Sale, man, that guy was a talent, and unfortunately he passed away several years ago following some health issues. Very sad that he is no longer with us, but he really killed it with this iteration of the character with some phenomenal art that is reminiscent of John Romita Sr.'s old style, and of course Bill Everett's style, one of the co-creators of Daredevil. But Daredevil Yellow, I think, is a very nice combination of both past and present. So yeah, moving on. Next one I have is also from the Brian Michael Bendis run, and that is Hardcore, which you can find in this Ultimate Edition from you can find it on Amazon or something if you want. But this is the ultimate climax of their intense run as Matt's life slowly spirals out of control. And of course, when things can't seem to get any shittier, the Kingpin returns. He did get into a bit of a Caesar-like situation in the beginning of the arc, but he's back and he's thoroughly pissed off at the people who tried gunning for him, and he shows just why he is the most dangerous villain that Daredevil has ever faced. And of course, the art from Alex Maleev is fantastic, and we even see, as we get to the climax of this run, we even see as the Kingpin and Daredevil get into their final confrontation, we even see the art style change from John Romita Sr. to John Romita Jr. to Gene Colan, basically all of the great Daredevil artists who have arrived over the years. Klaus Jensen even gets a page, but we also see the final confrontation between Daredevil and the Kingpin, and of course, things get even more batshit crazy when Daredevil declares himself the Kingpin of Hell's Kitchen and ends up leading to the glorious end that is the Murdoch Papers. But Hardcore, I think, is a phenomenal read and is also a just fantastic story on its own. So, yeah, there we go. Brian Michael Bendis, Hardcore, really great arc. You can find it in this. It is the second Daredevil Ultimate Collection, and we also see Matt spiral even more out of control than usual, so there you go. It is ultimately the climax of that run. So the last comic I have here today for you guys to read is once again from the Brubaker run, and if the Murdoch Papers wasn't already a classic ending to a Daredevil run, I do think that Return to the King is just as much of a rival to that. And we get yet another great confrontation between Matt and the Kingpin. Matt in this run has gone through the ringer. He has been in jail. He has alienated everybody in his life. And now he really has nothing else to lose except for being Daredevil. So the Kingpin has been away for a while. Long story on that one. He ends up getting a wife. He ends up meeting a woman while he's in exile in Spain. He ends up meeting a woman. He ends up befriending their kids. And he ends up having a really good time. Unfortunately, Fisk can't outrun the past. And of course, that means that some of his old enemies show up and wipe out everybody. And he gets pissed off and swears revenge. So, of course, he ends up coming back into the fold, completely broken with nothing left to lose. Again, he just fucking goes for it. He is out for blood. He wants vengeance. And of course, he is forced to team up with his old hated rival, Matt Murdock. And of course, it ends up turning into a all-out war as the Hand gets involved. This old guy who starts training Matt, who is also blind, who is totally not Stick, by the way, ends up turning into more of a martial arts epic more than a crime drama that we're accustomed to with Daredevil. But this is a very, very good end to the run of Daredevil. It is very tightly paced. The plot is very twisty, but it also is very cohesive. And of course, the art from Michael Lark and David Aja for his prologue of The Return of the King, which is easily one of the best things from the Ed Brubaker run. But really fantastic read. I really enjoy Return of the King quite a bit. And I think it's one of the more underrated Daredevil stories, because we actually see Daredevil and the Kingpin team up, though, of course, that doesn't last very long because, well, the Kingpin is the Kingpin, so you're not really going to get much worse than where they go from here. But, yeah, Return of the King is a fantastic read. Again, I would recommend reading the Bendis run to get more context on the Brubaker run, which is kind of the big hassle with that run. But I do think that Return of the King is a fantastic read, and also has one of the greatest cliffhanger endings that I've ever seen in a Daredevil run before Andy Diggle came along and just completely fumbled the whole thing. Just really, really, really frustrating that they didn't capitalize on the ending of this, because the ending of Return of the King is freaking great, and easily some of the best Daredevil stuff I have ever encountered. So, that is all for my comic recommendations. I only have one more, and that is the TV show. 3 excellent seasons of television. One I think is a little weaker than the other because they tried to do too much at once. But seasons 1 and 3 of Daredevil are some of the greatest seasons of television that I have ever seen in my life. Charlie Cox is in it, Eldon Henson. Basically, you'll get more of the context on why everyone is so excited that Daredevil Born Again is coming back. Well, unless you're already a fan of Daredevil, then in that case, watch it again. It's a fantastic series. I won't say too much more aside from it's a really great series. The acting, directing, the fight sequences. Oh my God, the fight sequences are all of them outstanding. We also get a phenomenal portrayal of the Kingpin from Vincent D'Onofrio, who really brings this menace, but also this bizarre, almost innocence to the character as well. Really, really compelling stuff, and easily one of the greatest comic book adaptations of all time. Not really much else to say aside from that. That was a lot. I hope you guys enjoyed my recommendations for Daredevil, and hopefully I will get back into the swing of things, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope my recommendations proved helpful. I hope it wasn't just me yapping the whole time. But as normal, you can find me on social media. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews that are probably more coherent than the one you just heard right now. You can also find me on Instagram. You can also find me on Blue Sky, even though I don't really use Blue Sky all that much. I am starting to change on that, but I don't really use Blue Sky very much. Also, like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. If you like Daredevil, recommend me some of your talk about some of your favorite Daredevil stories. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm completely gassed? Do you think I should go read the Soul and Zdarsky runs? Spoiler, I probably should. What are some of your favorite Daredevil things, though? Let me know down in the comments, and let me know if this list proved helpful to you guys. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. So, see you guys later. Bye-bye.